that's history, right? I mean, they're really in a contest. I think the Clinton campaign knows it's in a contest, and Bernie Sanders seems to have a new sort of impetus, a new sort of pep in his step, because the polls show him so close and potentially leading in Iowa and New Hampshire.
And Hillary Clinton, you feel the sense of urgency. She's feeling the sense of urgency. You cue the backseat driving story in the New York Times today, the hand-wringing, Bill Clinton supposedly is saying X and all this stuff. And for about 10 days, they've been trying out a whole bunch of attack lines on Bernie, and I think they're trying to see what's going to stick tonight.
Yeah, you know, remember 8 years ago now, this is a weird year, so we shouldn't draw direct comparisons to any previous year. But one thing that does seem to be similar is that it took a while for the Clintons to figure out how to go after Barack Obama. And they did it in several wrong ways, including here in South Carolina, that really backfired. You saw a bit of that on a much smaller scale, much less damaging, I think, this week, the way they went after Bernie Sanders on health care, an attack by Chelsea Clinton that was roundly criticized and did backfire on the Clinton campaign. So, you know, maybe they will learn from that first misstep and figure out how to go after this guy. They got to do it.
What's been interesting about this debate, you know, the Democratic debates overall have been criticized because they haven't been the Republican debates, because they haven't had the big guy in the room, Donald Trump. And you're right, they had been sort of nice affairs. This one's not nice. All day long there's been gamesmanship. The Hillary Clinton campaign telegraphing that they want to hit Sanders for not having a health care plan. Well, guess what he just put out an hour ago? His health care plan.
Would it be a health care plan?
Yeah, that's quite the little reverse gamesmanship there. Throw her off her stride.
It is. Of course, he did need to put that out. I mean, his health care plan is essentially Medicare for all. There is a big question mark about that. How do you pay for it? And so he had to come out with an explanation, and I guess he has. So we'll see.
We shall see. This is going to be a lot of substance tonight, but I think back and forth substance. All right, let's check in. Kristen Welker, of course, has been following the candidates. She's been talking with the campaigns throughout the day as they get ready for the debate. She joins me now. She's backstage for more on what we should look for tonight. And obviously, Kristen, in the last hour, we've got this issue of Sanders putting out his health care plan. That's certainly got to change some strategy there for Hillary Clinton.
Well, it definitely does, Chuck. The question is how. I am told that the Clinton campaign officials, as we speak, are pouring through the details of his health care plan to determine exactly how Secretary Clinton will respond tonight when she takes the stage. Look, this is a big night for Bernie Sanders. He is under a bright new spotlight, as you point out, because he's now tied in the polls with Secretary Clinton in New Hampshire and Iowa. So he is bracing himself for the sharpest attacks yet on health care and also on the issue of guns, which you and Eugene have also been discussing. One of his aides telling me, look, Secretary Clinton has a lot more experience than he has, but he keeps getting better with every debate. They need this to be his best debate yet. For Secretary Clinton, according to her campaign officials, her strategy tonight will be convincing voters that not only does she have the most experience, but that she would be the toughest candidate to stand up to a Republican in a general election. Now, Martin O'Malley, Chuck, just walked behind me. A little bit of news here. And he walked out onto the main stage to sort of get a sense of what the main stage looks and feels like. The stakes perhaps highest for him tonight, Chuck. Of course, he has failed to break through. He's got to do it tonight if he wants to be a part of this race. Chuck.
Well, it's going to be fascinating, Kristen Welker. As you get more info, check in, and we will get it done. As the candidates get ready to take the stage here in less than an hour, we're going to be talking to representatives from each campaign. And right now, I've got the campaign manager for Bernie Sanders' campaign, Jeff Weaver. Mr. Weaver.
Nice to see you, Chuck.
Welcome.
How are you?
I know we've got some we had some audio issues. I assume we have them all fixed, and everybody's hearing you just fine.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah, we will find out. So, Jeff, you guys put out your health care plan tonight.
Yes.
I'm guessing it was ready a week ago, or it could have been ready. You picked tonight for gamesmanship reasons, no?
Well, look, so we have been working on it for quite some time. But as you know, this is a very complicated issue. We wanted to make sure that we got it right. We wanted to put together a tax plan that would fund it progressively, and that's what we did. And so, I thought tonight was appropriate. That obviously a chance for the candidates to discuss issues like health care, which has been in the news.
Well, let's walk through the details of it. Okay, so it's Medicare for all.
Yes.
How do you pay for it?
Well, so we pay for it in a number of ways. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a 6.2% payroll tax on employers, which for employers who are providing health care now is a huge savings of thousands of dollars. We're going to put on a 2.2% premium on households, funded the same way we do the, or calculated like the income tax, which will, for a family of 4 making 50 grand, they will pay $446 a year. No co-payments, no deductibles, right? We're going to raise the income tax rates on upper income taxpayers. We're going to fix the estate tax and a few other changes.
As you know, a couple of times ago when Bernie Sanders was on the show, he seemed to say that he would only raise taxes on the middle class on one issue, and that was to pay for paid leave. This is violating that pledge,
Chuck, what you have to appreciate, and I know you do because you follow these things, the average family is going to save over $5,000 in healthcare costs. So if you're a family of 4 making 50 grand and you have to pay $446 to Uncle Sam, but you're saving $5,000 and you have no co-payments, no deductibles, that seems like a pretty good deal.
Look, one of the arguments that the Clinton campaign is going to make is this is a fine idea, but the Democratic Party has spent nearly 8 years litigating health care, and doing this is another 8 years of litigating health care. Does the political system, can the political system handle another health care debate like this?
Senator Sanders will be the first to tell you this isn't going to happen tomorrow. This is a vision that he is articulating. This is where he would like to go. I mean, universal health care has been a central tenet of the Democratic Party since Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And it would be really tragic to elect a candidate who does not support that anymore.
Does this mean that the senator thinks Obamacare just either didn't go far enough or wasn't good enough?
Well, look, he worked on the Affordable Care Act. He supported the Affordable Care Act. He was on the Senate committee that wrote the Affordable Care Act, and he strongly supported it. And it is a critically important step forward in the fight to get universal health care. There's no doubt about that. A major accomplishment, right? But we still have 29 million people without health insurance. We have many people with high co-payments and high deductibles. So, you know, the goal in the Democratic Party always has to move forward. We did Medicaid, Medicare, right? And we did Medicaid. We've been trying to expand it. Then we did the Affordable Care Act. And
so you do argue this is an evolution, not a scrapping of Obamacare?
Absolutely.
Because this plan doesn't look like it builds on it.
This is the fulfillment of the Democratic vision since Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
But it doesn't build on Obamacare. It does scrap it.
No, I don't think that's true. It incorporates all of the programs into a new comprehensive program that covers everybody, just like every other major industrial country does.
You know, one of the things about watching Senator Sanders in these debate process, it seems like he hasn't been comfortable in these formats. What have you done to try to get him more comfortable?
Well, I wouldn't say that. I think, you know, in the first debate, I thought we used that as an opportunity to talk to America, right? There wasn't as much engagement between the candidates. I think as we've gone along in the second and third debate, I think you've seen more interaction between the two candidates. And I'm sure, given this past week, you're going to see more engagement tonight than you have in past debates.
But it clearly is that you guys feel this sense of urgency. I mean, in a 24-hour period, Senator Sanders tried to answer 2 criticisms of the Clinton campaign. One on the gun immunity issue from gun manufacturers, and then suddenly putting on a health care plan.
And his tax plan, by the way. Right? So everybody wanted to know what the top tax marginal rate was.
And what is the top marginal rate going to be?
For people making $10 million or more, it's 52%.
Okay, and what about for those 250,000 up to in between?
500 is 37. 500 to 2 million is 43, and 2 million to 10 million is 48.
So it'll be 52 is the top, and you're talking a progressive rate that's going to have. Are we talking 6, 7? How many different categories are we looking at here?
Including the current tiers, I think you're looking at there's 4 there, and I think there's 3 underneath. So you're 4 underneath. So you'll get 8 tiers.
All right. Now let me play political cynic here.
Sure, of course.
You get the Democratic nomination.
Right.
You and I both know how the Republican Party will be able to characterize this. Look at this. He wants to return to tax rates that we haven't seen in 50 years. This isn't John Kennedy's Democratic Party anymore. This is something different.
Look, what we have seen in the last 30 years is a massive transfer of wealth from working people and middle-income people to the top. It's about time that we switch that around and that middle-income and working people started to be the beneficiaries of what goes on in our society.
What do you think it's going to take for Bernie Sanders to go from sitting where he is now, 40 to 45% in Iowa, to whatever that last 5 to 10 points he needs? And who are those voters? Are they people that like him but don't think he can win? Are they people that like him but are wondering, can he pass the commander-in-chief test? Who are these last?
Well, I think
who do you think it is?
I think there's 3 groups of people, right? There are sort of consistent Democratic voters who obviously know Secretary Clinton much better. I mean, she's just a better-known commodity. There's independents who we're bringing in, and new voters who we're bringing in, new Democratic voters. So we're expanding the base. It's not just convincing people who are current Democrats, which we are obviously trying to do, but expanding the Democratic base, which is why he does so well in general election matchups against Republicans, because he expands the Democratic base.
Well, Jeff Weaver, you guys have been busy in the last 24 hours. A tax plan, a health care plan, and you waited till the last minute to make sure that Hillary Clinton had a cram for it, huh?
Well, I think we released 6 pages. I think the secretary can read 6 pages in 3 hours.
All right, Jeff Weaver, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks,
we'll be watching tonight.
You got it.
We're going to take a short break. As you can see, we've got a lot going on here in the pre-show here before the debate. And when we come back, I'm going to speak to the House Minority Leader, Nancy Pelosi. We'll get her take on tonight's debate.
Getting ready to do something too. I'm running for president.
Today, I'm formally entering the race for the Democratic nomination for president.
And it may very well be that that process, by the time we get through it, closes the window on mounting a realistic campaign.
Hundreds of thousands of bright, capable young people are giving up the dream of a higher education because their families do not have enough money.
Up and everywhere, across the mountains, where man, I bleed the mountain there.
Hi, good to meet you. How old are you? Are you 3 years old? Oh.
They were all doing yoga when they were in town.
Oh my gosh, I love yoga.
And we are back here at the Gilliard Center in Charleston, South Carolina, less than 45 minutes from the start of tonight's Democratic debate. And by the way, we have a little pre-show going on there, so you'll be hearing that in the background. But I want to show some quick pictures here. Hillary Clinton arriving a few moments ago. Fairly, you'll see her there in the pictures, a little bit of an entourage, but there she is getting ready for a debate. And they have, of course, in the last 10 days, have indicated they plan on engaging Bernie Sanders in a way that they haven't done before. But as we continue our coverage here, I want to bring in the leader of the House Democrats, none other than Nancy Pelosi. Congresswoman Pelosi, nice to see you.
Nice to be here.
All right, Madam Leader, let me ask you this. I assume officially, are you totally not endorsed yet, correct?
I have not endorsed yet.
And so is that as a party leader role, or what are you waiting for?
I'm very excited about all of the candidates. I think all of them expand the pie of people who will be voting in the general election. Every one of their supporters is important to us in electing a Democratic president.
Have you been concerned that there had been more coverage and more eyeballs on the Republican debates than there had been on the Democratic debates?
Well, I have been one who had advocated for more debates. I think that they have done justice to our issues and to our candidates.
Well, I get if you watched any of the Sunday morning shows, I think the two candidates want to debate, so let them debate more, right?
Well, there are more debates to come.
Look, we're going to have a lot of conversations tonight, I think, particularly about health care and guns.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, just in general on health care, Senator Sanders released a plan. They say it expands upon Obamacare. The Hillary Clinton folks are saying no, it erases it and all this stuff. But let me just ask you this larger question. Can Washington handle another health care debate?
Well, the fact is that this has been an ongoing debate for many years, and access to healthcare is an evolving subject. We're always trying to improve it. We're very proud of the Affordable Care Act. 18 million people previously uninsured, insured now, no pre-existing conditions, no lifetime limits, all of that, the list goes on and on. So we're very proud of it. But
there
it
were
doesn't
reasons
mean there couldn't be improvements.
Right, but there were reasons you didn't do Medicare for all, right? There were reasons you didn't have a public option. What were those reasons?
Well, I was for a public option.
No, I know
myself.
you were personally for it, but you couldn't get it done, right?
Well, we passed in the House. We didn't get it done. But again, that doesn't mean the conversation is over. But the fact is, I think it's important for the Affordable Care Act to get a chance to do its job and then see what improvements we can make in terms of access, affordability, quality of care. But we're on a good path. We've reduced the cost. You know, as has been said in the debates, the increase in healthcare has been the biggest contributor to our deficit, and now that has changed. We've taken that in a different direction. So cost was one of the big reasons why we had to do care. Cost to individuals, cost to the federal government, cost to our economy, and now that has been reversed.
What is this, election? Sometimes there's change elections, sometimes there's continuity elections. What is this election to you? Is this going to be a big change election? Is this going to be a continuity election? Is it going to be somewhere in between? What do you think this election is going to be about? In the big picture.
Well, we are amused by each other always saying this is the most important election of our time.
By the way, I've covered that every 4 years.
Right,
actually, you cover it every 2 years, right? Yeah.
Right. But the fact is, they just keep getting more urgent. To me, the election is not about the differences among the Democrats, because they're minor compared to the big differences with the Republicans, between Democrats and Republicans. To me, the election is about the future, and that future depends on us going forward with an economy, a middle-class economy, middle-class economics versus trickle-down economics. Republicans right now want to take us back to where they took us in 2008, when we came to a near depression in our country. And it's really important for the public to understand they didn't learn a lesson then. They want to go back to that. Tax cuts for the wealthiest and special interest. We don't begrudge successful people their success, their wealth, their accomplishment, but we don't want it to be done at the exploitation and ignoring the needs of working families for growing their paychecks.
I'm curious, watching the stock market over the last 2 weeks, are you having any deja vu flashbacks to 8 years ago? Remember, it was about the start of 08 when suddenly it looked like things were going south. Are you at all concerned about this? What do people tell you about all this? What this means?
What we have that is different from 08 is we have Dodd-Frank. We have some checks on Wall Street. And again, I don't paint everyone on Wall Street with the same brush, but the fact that they were on that path, and they want to take us back to that. They want to dismantle Dodd-Frank, the real check that will protect us from what happened in 2008.
You're a student of American politics. You've been in so many different battles and different election years. Yeah. What do you make of the country's anxiety What do you think is the underlying reason for the anxiety? It's clear there's anxiety out there. What do you think it is?
I think that it's really important to evaluate what happened in 2008 very carefully. It was a situation where families were threatened in terms of their financial stability, their home ownership, their pensions, their jobs, the ability to send their children to school. They saw us bail out Wall Street in their view, which was to bail out our entire economy, and nobody bailed them out. And I think that uncertainty is what is holding in check any consumer confidence that they might have. And consumer confidence is the lifeblood of our economy.
Right.
And if they don't feel comfortable to consume, that we're never really going to grow the economy to the full benefit of everyone enjoying prosperity. And since the president took office, remember this, unemployment was 10% when he took office. It's now 5%.
But we do have a wage issue. That clearly is driving things.
We have a wage issue, and part of that would have, we would have done better if the Republicans would have went along with or suggested anything to address that. But you cannot address it if you're saying no to any suggestion that is made by the President of the United States. If you just say wages will increase if we give tax breaks to the wealthiest people in our country and to special interests. So we have to invest in education, invest in research and development, invest in infrastructure in our country so we can create good paying jobs. And when we increase the paycheck, everybody in our economy will benefit.
I know you're officially neutral. You broke a glass ceiling as Speaker of the House.
Marble ceiling.
Marble ceiling, that's right. You broke a marble ceiling as first woman Speaker of the House. How important is it for the Democratic Party to elect the first woman president?
It will be very exciting. There's no question. I mean, I love all of our candidates. I'm from Maryland. I appreciate Martin O'Malley and support his agenda. I'm a colleague of Bernie Sanders and love the fact that he's attracting so many people to his point of view. Hillary Clinton is the first woman president. It would send quite a... I can say from my own experience, being Speaker is different from being president, but nonetheless, the public awareness of it is different, but nonetheless, the response that we got from around the country and around the world was
Something about being the first.
Well, being the first woman.
Right.
Being first woman, because we believe when women succeed, America succeeds.
Right. Nancy Pelosi, I know you want to get down to your seat and watch this debate. Thank you. Thanks for coming on. We're going to take another quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to go to Iowa, because we're going to be joined by a representative of, and also joined by Representative Martin O'Malley's campaign, but from Iowa, a whole bunch of voters who are going to watch the debate with us. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Charleston, South Carolina. As you can see there is Bernie Sanders, the final candidate to arrive here tonight. It's going to be quite the contentious debate, I have a feeling. When I had Bernie Sanders on the show this morning, he answered every question with trying to talk about Hillary Clinton. All right, now let's go backstage to Kristen Welker. She right now has a representative of Martin O'Malley's campaign, South Carolina State Senator Vincent Shaheen.
Right, it was your
Kristen.
bill, yeah.
We don't hear anything.
It looks like we've got a little bit of a audio issue there. Kristen Welker, are you hearing me backstage? All right. We will wait to fix that. It's a live event. We got a lot going on here. I got Eugene Robinson back with me here. So, Eugene, I asked Nancy Pelosi whether Washington could handle another health care debate.
Right.
She dodged because she wants to stay officially neutral there. But is this an evolution on health care for Democrats, or is this a change?
Well, look, Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, Nancy Pelosi have long philosophically believed in truly universal health care.
Harry Truman, Ted Kennedy, we can go on and on, right?
Richard Nixon, actually, too.
Don't forget Richard Nixon.
If you want to be technical. The question is, politics being the art of the possible, is it possible to go back into health care, given the fact that the Affordable Care Act barely passed? That was the fight of all fights, and it set the tone for the rest of President Obama's presidency. It's difficult to imagine that Congress is going to pass such a sweeping reform of health care. Then again, as I said before, this is a weird year, and people are sending a message. And potentially will send a very strong message.
I think everybody's tired. I think that you have the base of both parties is tired of incrementalism.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, what is the right upset about? They're upset that their party doesn't fight hard enough. It doesn't go all the way.
It's the candidates who think big and talk big.
And I think progressives are thinking the same.
They're the ones who are getting the attention. They're the ones who are inspiring passion among voters, and that can make a difference this year.
All right. Well, we've been doing live television. The good news is I can now go to Kristen Welker. My pal over there backstage, she's got a representative of Martin O'Malley's campaign with her, none other than South Carolina State Senator Vincent Shaheen. Let's see if we can do this time. Kristen, take it away.
I hear you loud and clear now. Thanks, Chuck. That's right. As we've been talking about, the stakes are incredibly high for Martin O'Malley tonight. He is polling in the single digits. Senator Shaheen, thank you so much for joining me. Is it too late for Martin O'Malley to break through?
I don't think so. I remember well 2008 when Hillary Clinton seemed to be about to win South Carolina, and then just a few weeks out, that changed dramatically. People are looking for new leadership. They're looking for someone to lead us into the future, and I think he has a great shot.
But he is polling in the single digits, and the Iowa caucuses are 15 days away. What does he have to do in this debate that he hasn't been able to do yet?
Well, I think it's critical in this debate that he portray that image of who he is. He is the next generation of leadership for Democrats in this country. You know, we've seen the Clintons, we've seen the Bernie Sanders around forever. The question is tonight, can he connect with the public to let them realize that Martin O'Malley really has what it takes to lead us into the future?
You've been giving him some advice. What is your top piece of advice for him?
Be different from the other two. You know, he doesn't need to engage in the petty bickering that we've seen go on for 40 years in Washington, D.C. Martin O'Malley's done things. He's actually accomplished things. Tonight, he needs to let the public know it.
Senator Sanders just released his plan to pay for his single-payer Medicare for All health care plan. I know you've had a chance to look at the broad details. What's your reaction if you were counseling Martin O'Malley? What should his line of attack be, if anything?
He shouldn't attack. I think the basic goals between all three Democratic candidates are the same with health care: expand coverage and bring costs down. They might have different ways of
Bernie
going
Sanders'
about
plan is dramatically different than Martin O'Malley's or Hillary Clinton.
Martin O'Malley's plan really is focused on the cost savings that would allow people to expand their opportunities for health care. Again, he's thinking differently, outside the box, different than what we've heard from Bernie Sanders for 40 plus years and Hillary Clinton for quite a while.
And let's just try quickly on the issue of guns. As you know, just yesterday, Senator Sanders reversed himself on a piece of gun legislation to align himself a little bit more with President Obama. What can we expect to hear from Martin O'Malley on that?
I think Martin O'Malley supports common sense reforms.
But does he see that as a flip-flop?
I don't think he'll be attacking Bernie Sanders tonight. I really don't. He'll show the public that he's been consistent when perhaps the others haven't. But his job is to focus on his message, and I think you'll see that tonight.
But should he sharpen his attacks if he wants to break through? Does he need to?
Actually, I think that'd be the opposite approach, the wrong approach. We've seen seeing Clinton and Bernie Sanders go at it. And you know what? I think people are tired of it, and they're looking for something different. Lord knows we need something different.
Senator Shaheen, thank you so much. Chuck, I'll toss it back to you.
Very interesting, Kristen. I think we do know the Martin O'Malley strategy. I think they're hoping the other two have a fiery night. Anyway, we are partnering for this debate with YouTube. And you'll also be able to watch the debate online on YouTube and at NBCNews.com. Plus, you'll be able to interact as you watch, and we'll be tracking your questions and comments. We'll be joined in that effort by Daniel Seberg of the Google News Lab, who has been looking at the issues and questions that are currently trending going into tonight's debate. So, Daniel, tell us what we got.
Sure, Chuck. We've been looking at the data over the weeks and days leading up to the debate. In fact, even minute by minute, that will be available at google.com/trends. And if we look at a national map of search interest, we can see that Bernie Sanders is really getting the bulk of interest across the country, followed by Hillary Clinton. We will follow that over the course of the debate and see how that changes, almost a bit of a horse race graphic. And we'll see, of course, which issues are topical and what's really on the front of mind for people who want to get context and clarity as they turn to search.
All right, Daniel, we'll be watching that. Let me ask you this. When you see this and you see the engagement, it feels as if Bernie Sanders has had more engagement online. Is it just in the last week, or that's been the last 6 months?
So that was over the past week, but you could argue that he's had more search interest sort of in general. Perhaps part of that is that perhaps people aren't as familiar with his policies. You know, for example, in the past 4 hours, we saw about a 600% increase in searches around his health care policy, which we know is now available to folks. And maybe people know a bit more about Hillary Clinton. But there are questions that people have, and we actually have a graphic to show you, what people are asking when they turn to search. So, for example, with Bernie Sanders, they ask things like, why is Bernie Sanders so popular? Can Bernie Sanders win? And of course, how old is Bernie Sanders? And we see that a lot with different candidates. With Hillary Clinton, we see things like, will Hillary Clinton get prosecuted? Questions around the Benghazi hearings. And then with Martin O'Malley, we see things like, why is Martin O'Malley running for president? Is he still running for president? So of course, not as known to folks, and people have those questions about whether he's even still in the race at this point.
And what you're telling me, there's sometimes a little bit of snark online. We're shocked at some of those tougher
curiosity
ways. Anyway, curiosity, fair enough.
Maybe a bit
anyway,
extended.
Daniel Seberg, you got it. Daniel, thanks very much. Well, as we've noted, Iowa, of course, will kick off the primary season with its caucuses. It's just 15 days from now. And we're going to be watching the debate with some voters in Iowa. They are at a debate watch party in Urbandale. That is basically a suburb of Des Moines. The race in Iowa now is very tight between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. We've had 3 polls in the last week. 2 have had Hillary Clinton up by 3 or less, and 1 has had Sanders up by 2. A lot going on here tonight. 23 minutes away from the debate. We'll be right back.
In 1999, you voted for the very bill that made banks bigger.
The Glass-Steagall was my very first vote. I just arrived. My dad had died in office. I was appointed to the office. It was my very first vote.
Are you saying you didn't know what you were voting for?
I just arrived the Senate.
I'd have to say the enemy soldier that threw the grenade that wounded me, but he's not around right now to talk to.
All right, time for closing statements.
The American people want to know whether we're going to have a democracy or an oligarchy as a result of Citizens United. Enough of the emails. Let's talk about the real issues facing America.
And other questions still lingered. And these questions lingered because previous investigations were not thorough.
It would have happened long ago. The fact of the matter is, and let's say it in our debate because you'll never hear this from that immigrant-bashing carnival barker, Donald Trump, the truth of the matter is,
Less than 20 minutes before the start of the debate. We're back here in Charleston, waiting for the candidates to come on stage. We've heard from O'Malley's campaign, the Sanders campaign. So we're missing one, aren't we? We're joined now by Joel Benenson. He is, of course, the senior strategist for Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. Joel, nice to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Chuck, as always.
Okay, the campaign over the last, I'd say, 72 hours wanted to see Bernie Sanders rethink his position on immunity for gun manufacturers. They wanted to see him release his health care plan, and they wanted to see him release his tax plan. Well, check, check, check. You guys succeeded.
Well, I think
he's released all of these things.
Well, in a manner of speaking, I mean, what we've seen happen in the last 24 to 48 hours is he's come under a lot of scrutiny. The election days are getting closer, and as his plans and what he's been saying about them come under scrutiny, he's kind of had to backtrack, and there's a bit of unsteadiness here. So after weeks of saying he would never change his mind on this provision on immunity, giving gun dealers immunity, he did exactly that. He came under scrutiny from Secretary Clinton, and he criticized her for the question she was raising about his health care plan, and he's now, after having the same plan, Chuck, for 20 years, he's introduced it 9 times in Congress, 2 hours before a debate, he suddenly released the shell of a plan, and I think what's clear here is that no one knows for sure what the details are in his plans at all.
You don't believe he provided enough details telling how he paid for it? There was, I mean, he's got some paid for, the payroll tax and how it would work, employer tax.
I think they put out a press release. I don't think they put out a plan. I think as we learned about the last plan where he said all of her criticisms were wrong, he's now basically acknowledged the criticisms are right, and he's trying to make adjustments for it. So there is something here. The details do matter when you're running for president. When you want to get real results that will make a real difference in people's lives, you have to get the details right. That's part of the job. So I think what's happened here is just some, I don't want to call it sleight of hand, but there's certainly some changes going on here from a guy who said he's been consistent his whole life.
Let's talk about the mood of the Democratic electorate. Yeah. Because it was interesting. In our NBC News Wall Street Journal poll, we asked, what kind of candidate are you looking for? Somebody that's been tested with experience, or somebody that will bring a lot of change. Now, a majority of Democrats want somebody who's tested and experienced. A majority of Americans want somebody who's going to bring change. Among Democrats, Bernie Sanders, I got one of my charts here, you've been looking at it, Bernie Sanders does do better than Hillary Clinton among those Democrats who want change. Hillary Clinton does a lot better among those Democrats who want somebody experienced and tested. There is a change vibe that's out there, and you start seeing it in the Democratic Party. Do you think it's only going to grow, and do you think Hillary Clinton has to respond to that vibe?
No, I actually think there's look, when you get your national results and you say a majority of people want change, you've got a lot of Republicans in that sample.
But 61% isn't all Republican, you know that.
No,
61 isn't all Republican.
No, it's independents too. Yeah, I think people want to build on the progress we've made. I think they know we've got unfinished work here. I think President Obama acknowledged that in his State of the Union, and certainly Secretary Clinton has been saying we've got to build on the progress, that we've got to keep doing more to get people's incomes rising and create the good-paying jobs that will do that. We need to restore more fairness to our economy, and we need both growth and fairness in order to be able to get people their incomes up, get them their costs down on things like prescription drugs. That's how the American people and their families will get ahead. So I think people want a candidate who does have the experience to bring changes and build on progress, someone who has what it takes to do the job. I think that's why she's doing reasonably pretty well right now.
What do you tell those voters, and maybe it's this last chunk of undecided voters in Iowa, some of whom, you know, they'll look at the Sanders tax plan, they'll look at Clinton's tax plan, and they'll say, well, he's going for broke. And you guys will argue, well, she's going for what can get done. How do you tell a voter sometimes doesn't want to hear, well, this is as most as we can get done versus what we wish we could do?
No, I don't think she's going for what can get done. I think what she's going for are for things that will make a real difference in people's lives. You do have to get things done when you're president. You have to have a president who has what it takes to do all parts of the job, whether we're talking about keeping them safe against the terrorist threats we face and the global threats, or whether it's getting our economy moving again and getting it up to full throttle so kids can go to college debt-free, so that people can get better jobs and get their incomes rising, so that women are making the same amount as men when they do the same work. That takes a president who has what it takes to do all parts of the job and get real results for people.
Would you describe Hillary Clinton as a change candidate or not?
I think Hillary Clinton is a change agent. I think Hillary Clinton has been pushing the limits all her entire career. She took on the healthcare industry 20 years ago, long before others were.
All right, Joel Benenson, I got to leave it there. You've got some debate prep to do. We're just about 15 minutes until the start of tonight's debate, and when we come back, we're going to go back to the stage with our correspondents, and you're going to see a first glimpse of the candidates sharing the stage together.
first line of defense against radicalization is in the Muslim American community. I worry greatly that the rhetoric coming from the Republicans, particularly Donald Trump, is sending a message to Muslims here in the United States and literally around the world that there is a clash of civilizations, that there is some kind of Western plot or even war against Islam, which then, I believe, fans the flames of radicalization.
Senator Sanders, you fired a campaign staffer. You have sued the Democratic National Committee. All of this after your campaign acknowledged that some of your staffers, quote, irresponsibly accessed data from another campaign. The Clinton campaign called this a very egregious breach of data and ethics and said, quote, our data was stolen.
The DNC vendor screwed up. Information came to our campaign. In this case, our staff did the wrong thing. They looked at that information. As soon as we learned that they looked at that information, we fired that person. We are now doing an independent internal investigation.
Good evening. It is a big night in American politics. We are less than 10 minutes from tonight's Democratic debate between the three top candidates. I'm Chuck Todd here at the Gilliard Center in Charleston, South Carolina, where the three candidates, Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, and Martin O'Malley, are backstage about to take their places at the podiums. Clinton and Sanders have been setting some of the broad themes of this debate. Earlier today, they went all over the Sunday morning shows, including Meet the Press. The themes of change versus experience and change versus continuity. This will be their final showdown face-to-face before the Iowa caucuses, which are 2 weeks from tomorrow, when the first votes of the 2016 presidential race will finally be cast. Tonight's debate, by the way, will be moderated by our own Lester Holt, and he'll be joined in the questioning by Andrea Mitchell. Throughout the debate, all of us, including our correspondents and experts, will be providing real-time analysis. So, gone over for a second screen experience at NBCNews.com. But right now, let's get into a little bit of the pre-debate action. We're going to go down to Andrea Mitchell and Kristen Welker, who are backstage. Kristen, take it away.
Hey, Chuck. Well, I'm with the great Andrea Mitchell just moments before this debate. You're excited, I'm sure.
We are so excited. I mean, this is the opportunity, and just before Iowa, the last debate before Iowa, to see the candidates, see Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders and Martin O'Malley, hear what they have to say about big issues and what their contrasts are, what are their differences, and help the voters decide.
And I don't want to give anything away about the debate, but set the scene of the backdrop to this debate. You've been on the campaign trail, I've been on the campaign trail, a lot of sharp attacks.
A lot of elbows. I mean, the timing could not be better, Kristen, as you know. They have been going at each other, the intensity of the campaign. She has been acknowledging to supporters that perhaps they underestimated him. He's got so much support, but here we are in South Carolina, where she has the enthusiasm and the passion and much deeper roots with the African American voters. So this, ironically, could be her firewall if he, as current polls would suggest, and if it turns out that way, he could win Iowa. He's got a shot at that. He certainly has a strong neighborhood connection to New Hampshire, being from Vermont. So this could be the place in South Carolina that tests whether he has legs to go further.
So much at stake for each of these candidates. Andrea, just break it down for us by candidate. What are you going to be looking for?
Well, we want to hear Hillary Clinton and see how does she go after him? How tough is she going to be? Obviously, there are big foreign policy questions, at stake as well, as we see this weekend. And for Bernie Sanders, this is the test of, is this going to be the polite Democratic campaign, or is it going to be what we've seen on the campaign trail?
And let's just pause. We have Secretary Clinton entering right now, shaking some hands. And Governor O'Malley following her, shaking Debbie Wasserman Schultz's hand, of course, the chairwoman of the DNC. The stakes could not be higher as they walk out onto the stage. And here is Senator Sanders. So we have all three candidates now walking out onto the stage preparing for this pivotal debate just 15 days before the Iowa caucuses, the last time these candidates face off, before the voters have their say. So talk about the anticipation that you feel just being here, Andrea, that we all feel.
Well, it's so exciting. We see them on the trail. We shout questions or try to ask them questions. We see them at rallies. You can hear the cheers from inside the theater. But this is the chance to get into the policies with them and really talk about the things they care about and how they handle the pressure from each other.
Well, there's no one better to do that than you and Lester, and we are very excited about that. And Chuck, I'll toss it back to you.
Thank you, Kristen. The candidates are on stage right behind me. You hear the cheers there. By the way, we went from all those red ties at the Republican debate last week, and it's nothing but blue on stage with our three candidates. Let me go to another veteran political observer who's watching tonight. It's none other than my pal Dan Balz. He's, of course, the chief correspondent of the Washington Post. And Dan, boy, I tell you, in the last 72 hours, suddenly the Democratic campaign became the Republican campaign. There's fighting. There's all sorts of exchanges. There's a debate that people are actually anticipating with bated breath. What a 72 hours for Hillary Clinton.
It's been a real roller coaster for her. And Chuck, what we're looking at tonight is the opening of the closing arguments in this campaign for these two candidates. Martin O'Malley's on the stage, but all the focus is on Sanders and Clinton. We know that she's going to be tough on him. He's changed his position on guns in the last couple of days. He's got a new plan on health care that he put out just before the debate. There is a lot of substance on the table tonight that they're going to go after one another on.
Ultimately, Dan, this feels like this is two candidates that have to try to convince the Democratic electorate that either you want radical change or basically continuity with a little bit of change. And it seems as if that's been the struggle for Hillary Clinton. Bernie Sanders has had a bit of an easier time making that radical change argument.
Very true. I think the other issue is electability. She's going to push that question on him throughout not only the debate, but the final weeks before the Iowa caucuses in New Hampshire. Raise questions in voters' minds about whether Bernie Sanders can actually win a general election. He is going to try to show that he's got a grassroots movement. We know he's got some significant following, but what he's going to try to do is say he can bring out voters in November that she can't do.
How much, it's interesting, this electability argument. You've spent a lot of time in Iowa and New Hampshire. I have too. Electability is a word you don't often hear in Iowa and New Hampshire. You'll hear it in future primaries, but not in those first two contests.
Well, that's right, and I question how much it will have an effect in Iowa and New Hampshire. I mean, those states are somewhat immune to the kinds of arguments that we hear from candidates at later points in the campaign. I think that in Iowa and New Hampshire, they've gotten a very close look, and really, it's a cliche, but there is so much effort now going into the ground game, into identifying the last hard supporters for each candidate and making sure they get out. And so the question of electability in Iowa will probably be less important than it is later.
All right, Dan Balz, I'll let you get to your seat so you can start writing and reporting. Thanks very much. Let me go back to Kristen Welker. She spent much of the day talking with the campaigns ahead of tonight's debate. She's backstage. We see everybody getting wired up. What are you hearing back there? Do you see nervousness? Do you see jitters, smiles? What are you seeing?
Chuck, you can feel the anticipation back here. There certainly aren't a whole lot of smiles. This is game time. The candidates are talking to their top aides. They're getting mic'd up. They're going over their last-minute thoughts and ideas before they step out onto that stage, as we've been reporting all night. This is the most pivotal debate yet. It's coming just days before the all-important Iowa caucuses, before the voters weigh in, and it comes about 24 hours after Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders changed his position on a key piece of gun legislation, and just 2 hours after he released the pay-for plan of his health care plan. So expect Secretary Clinton to draw sharp lines with him over both of those issues, but also to paint him as a flip-flopper. We've seen that in her language And based on your conversation, of course, with Mr. Benenson, he signaled that that will be her line of attack as well. And for Martin O'Malley, the stakes could not be higher. He is polling in the single digits. This is his chance to really have a breakthrough moment. Based on my conversation with Senator Shaheen earlier in the hour, it doesn't seem like he's going to be in attack mode, but Chuck, he might need to draw some of these sharp lines if he really wants to break through and get on the map of this very competitive race. Chuck?
Kristen, I am curious here. I feel like this entire pre-debate few hours has all been about Bernie Sanders. It's about him releasing this plan. It's about him changing his position on guns. It's about him releasing a tax plan. This is a debate that's going to be about Bernie Sanders for better or for worse unless something changes, no?
What an incredible tactic, Chuck. He has essentially tried to knock the Clinton campaign off of its game. Is he successful? We'll have to see when they take the stage. Chuck?
All right. Kristen Welker backstage. It's going to be a doozy. Thanks very much. So, what are we going to see tonight? This is a Democratic electorate that is not quite as antsy as the Republican electorate is. Democrats are trying to do something that hasn't happened very often. That is elect a president for a third straight term. Hillary Clinton being seen more as the continuity candidate with Barack Obama, sort of progressive change, pragmatic change. I think she described that herself. Bernie Sanders trying to tap into the progressive idealistic movement. We've seen it. He's got energy in New Hampshire. That's a neighboring state of his, but he's also got energy in Iowa now. This is the final showdown between these candidates before Iowa and New Hampshire take place. So after this, they are going to be racing to Iowa, and I guarantee you it is going to be nothing but wall-to-wall campaigning. We're at the time where every day is a week, and every week will feel like a day. All right, so coming up, it is the NBC News YouTube Democratic debate, moderated by our own Lester Holt and Andrea Mitchell. Here they are.
I am ready to play and win for you.
Let's have the courage to take on the billionaire class.
We must build an American economy that works for all of us.
I believe we should break up the large banks. Hillary Clinton does not.
Senator Sanders has been a pretty reliable vote for the gun lobby.
To say that I'm kind of a supporter of the NRA is a mean-spirited and inaccurate statement.
Senator Sanders voted to give immunity to gun dealers. Secretary Clinton changes her position on this every election year.
My view is we shouldn't be ripping up Obamacare and starting over.
Now she's attacking me because I support universal health care.
I think America is great, and it's up to us to make sure we make it greater.
I believe we're going to make history one more time.
The Democratic Candidates Debate, live from the Gilliard Center in Charleston, South Carolina. Here now, Lester Holt.
Good evening and welcome to the NBC News YouTube Democratic Candidates Debate. After all the campaigning, soon Americans will have their say with the first votes of the 2016 campaign just 15 days away in Iowa and New Hampshire, not far behind. Tonight will be the final opportunity to see these candidates face to face before the voting begins. Our purpose here tonight is to highlight and examine the differences among the three Democratic candidates. So let's get started. Please welcome Secretary Hillary Clinton, Senator Bernie Sanders, and Governor Martin O'Malley. Welcome to all of you. Hope you're excited. We're excited. We want to thank our host, the Congressional Black Caucus Institute. I'm joined by my colleague, Andrea Mitchell, tonight. The rules are simple. 60 seconds for answers, 30 seconds for follow-ups or rebuttals. I know you'll all keep exactly to time, so our job should be pretty easy here tonight. We'll also have questions from the YouTube community throughout the debate. This is a critical point in the race. You've been defining your differences with each other especially vigorously in the last week on the campaign trail. We're here to facilitate this conversation on behalf of the voters so that they know exactly where you stand as you face off tonight. Let's have a great debate. We'll begin with 45-second opening statements from each candidate, starting with Secretary Clinton.
Well, good evening, and I want to thank the Congressional Black Caucus Institute and the people of Charleston for hosting us here on the eve of Martin Luther King Day tomorrow. You know, I remember well when my youth minister took me to hear Dr. King. I was a teenager, and his moral clarity, the message that he conveyed that evening, really stayed with me and helped to set me on a path to service. I also remember that he spent the last day of his life in Memphis fighting for dignity and higher pay for working people, and that is our fight still. We have to get the economy working and incomes rising for everyone, including those who have been left out and left behind. We have to keep our communities and our country safe. We need a president who can do all aspects of the job. I understand that this is the hardest job in the world. I'm prepared and ready to take it on, and I hope to earn your support to be the nominee of the Democratic Party and the next president of the United States.
Thank you. Senator Sanders, your opening statement, sir.
Thank you. As we honor the extraordinary life of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., it's important not only that we remember what he stood for, but that we pledge to continue his vision to transform our country. And as we look out at our country today, what the American people understand is we have an economy that's rigged, that ordinary Americans are working longer hours for lower wages, 47 million people living in poverty, and almost all of the new income and wealth going to the top 1%. And then, to make a bad situation worse,